The next topic is going to go to Bill Brown, and that's going to be the witnesses.
Hold on.
Well, basically, you have so as far as the witnesses to the Tippit slaying, you had Jimmy Burt and Bill Smith. They were out in the front yard. They were a block east of 10th and Patton, and then you have Domingo Benavides in his pickup truck, and obviously he was driving towards the patrol car when the shots rang out. And you have Helen Markham. She was walking down Patton on the way to her bus stop. She's standing at the corner of 10th and Patton, the northwest corner of 10th and Patton, which is kind of catty corner to the corner in question. And she saw the patrol car stop and the man walk over to the car. Shots ring out. You have Jimmy Burt and Bill Smith. They hear the shots. They look back down the street. You have Benavides swerves his truck hard to the right. He was damn near 15 feet from the patrol car, so that startled him. Markham starts to scream and drop to her knees. Scoggins is in his cab. He hears the shots, basically sees the officer fall and the gunman run in his direction. So he gets out of his cab. Barbara Davis and Virginia Davis, they were in the house on the corner of 10th and Patton, and they both come to the front door. They see a gunman cutting across their yard with a gun in his hand. Scoggins is leaving his cab. He's trying to run away and decides there's nowhere to hide. So he crosses back the street back to the cab and starts to hide behind the driver's side back quarter panel, looking over the back trunk. This is when he hears the killer say, "Poor damn cop," or "Poor dumb cop," says it twice. And then the killer proceeds down Patton. He's seen by Sam Ginyard and is also seen by Ted Calloway running down Patton. Now, these guys obviously heard the shots. They go out to the sidewalk and they look north up Patton and they see this gunman coming down the street. And then you have four guys at the Johnny Reynolds Motor Company, a block south of the shooting scene. Now, this was located at the corner of Patton and Jefferson. This will be the southeast corner, which is across the street from Ted Calloway's lot. And so these four fellows, L.J. Lewis, Warren Reynolds, Harold Russell, and Pat Patterson, they look up the street, and all four of these guys see the killer coming down the street with a gun in his hand. Now, here's the thing. All these witnesses, let me count them up here. We have Jimmy Burt and Bill Smith. That's 2. Benavides is 3. Markham is 4. The Davis sister-in-laws is 6. Scoggins is 7. Calloway and Ginyard make 9. And the four guys at the Johnny Reynolds Motor Company make 13 people. Okay. Now, Jimmy Burt and Bill Smith never said the killer was Oswald. Benavides never said the killer was Oswald, even though he does use Oswald's name a couple of times when describing the actions of the killer. But I don't use Benavides as a witness for the killer being Oswald. Okay. Helen Markham picks Oswald at a lineup. Barbara Davis picks Oswald at a lineup. Virginia Davis picks Oswald at a lineup. William Scoggins picks Oswald at a lineup. Sam Ginyard picks Oswald at a lineup. Ted Calloway picks Oswald as a lineup. Okay. The four guys at the Johnny Reynolds Motor Company, 3 of them, Harold Russell, Pat Patterson, and Warren Reynolds, said the man they saw was Oswald, and L.J. Lewis was uncertain. So these 13 witnesses, 9 of them said it was Oswald. 4 of them couldn't make a decision one or the other, but none of the 13 said the guy was not Oswald. Unless you want to, and I'm talking about what they told the authorities in 1963 or 1964. Okay. So Jimmy Burt was interviewed by the FBI in 1964, makes no mention that the killer was not Oswald. He just gave a description of the guy. Matt's going to bring up some interview given 4 or 5 years later to Al Chapman or whoever it was, talking about how Burt supposedly said the guy wasn't Oswald, but he didn't tell that to the FBI in 1964. So Matt wants to use first day evidence. I think he's even used those exact words earlier in this debate. First day evidence, basically, we're talking about 1964 FBI interview. It might even be December 63. I have to look at Burt's interview, but he doesn't make any reference whatsoever to the guy not being Oswald. He just didn't say the guy was Oswald. So I just listed 13 witnesses, and 9 of these 13 said the man they saw was Lee Harvey Oswald. 4 of the 13 said that the man they saw, they couldn't be certain one way or the other, but 0 of these 13 said the man was not Lee Harvey Oswald to the authorities, which is when it counts.
Okay, to which we talked about all this last time, but I will say, to which I simply say, you mean the unfair lineups and the photo that was shown to them many months after all this happened, after he was nationally known? Okay, anyway.
Well, the unfair lineups, I mean, you asked me a question, let me answer. So the unfair lineups, basically, when you say the lineups are unfair, you're basically accusing Helen Markham, Barbara Davis, Virginia Davis, William Scoggins, Sam Ginyard, and Ted Calloway of going to these lineups and basically saying, I'm going to pick the guy who most resembled the guy I saw, even if the guy I saw is not in the lineup. I'm just going to pick the guy who most resembled.
Nope.
That's not what they were doing, Matt. They were going there to pick a guy that they saw, and if they didn't see the guy, they wouldn't have picked a guy.
Again, unfair lineups, and we talked about that already. But anyway, you mentioned Jim.
Again, these witnesses went to the lineup and picked the man they saw. They didn't pick a man who most resembled the man they saw. They picked the man they saw.
Okay. Okay, so you mentioned Jimmy Burt. And so Jimmy Burt was never asked in 1964, or if he was never asked about any identification whatsoever. So it's very misleading for you to say that he didn't, what was the argument that you said?
I said to the authorities in 1963 or 1964, Jimmy Burt never told any of them that the man he saw was not Oswald.
Because he was never asked that question.
So the FBI takes time out of their day, sends 2 agents to go interview Jimmy Burt, and they're not going to ask him if he thought the man was Oswald or not.
If they did, they didn't write it down. I wonder why. Probably because when Al Chapman caught up with him in 1968, he said, no, the killer was not Oswald. No.
So Chapman asked the question that the FBI forgot to ask.
Again, like I said, Bill, if the FBI asked him that question, they didn't report it or write it down. I wonder why. Probably because he said it wasn't Oswald.
So you think that Jimmy Burt is going to tell the FBI that the man was not Oswald, and they're going to leave that off of the report?
Yes. We know what.
On what grounds? On what grounds are you saying that?
Listen. They never asked him, or if they did ask him, they didn't write it down. So therefore, what we have to rely on is when he was asked that question. And he was asked that question in 1968 by Al Chapman, and he was also asked in the 1970s by Larry Harris if it was Oswald. And he told them, no, it was not Oswald. So that's what we have to go by, because they never asked him the FBI never asked him. Or if they did ask him, they never wrote it down. So therefore, what we have to go by is what he told Chapman and Harris.
The FBI went out and interviewed Jimmy Burt. He gave a description of the guy, and he didn't say the guy wasn't Oswald. He just described the guy as best as he could.
Again, are you not hearing what I'm saying, Bill? If they did ask him, they didn't write it down. There's nothing in his 1964 interview with the FBI about any identification whatsoever. So therefore, what we have to go on is what he told Chapman and Harris. Correct or no?
No, I'm going by what he told the FBI in December. It was in December of '63.
Again, they never asked him that question, or if they did, they never wrote it down. So you're basing it on something that's not in the report. They never wrote it down if he told them, or they didn't ask him. So therefore, what we have
you're making up a scenario which for all we know didn't take place. You're making up a scenario.
I'm not making up a scenario. It's very simple. They did not ask him about any identification of Oswald or show him a picture. Or if they did, I know I keep repeating myself because it's not getting to you, getting through your head. But anyway, what we have to rely on is what he told Chapman and Harris, because that information is not in his original interview. They never asked him the question.
Jimmy Burt told the FBI, he described the guy, white male, 5'8", wearing a light-colored jacket. And he said he could not describe the man further.
Yes.
Nothing about the man not being Oswald, which is nothing about the man not being. He didn't tell him the man was not Oswald, or it would have been in. So
do you take that statement to mean that I can't describe him any further than what I just described? It means that he can't identify the person? That's amazing. No, he said that the killer looked like this, this, and this, and that's all I can describe of him. You're twisting that. You're twisting that.
No, he describes the man as a white male, approximately 5'8", wearing a light-colored jacket. Yeah. That's it. Period. Yes. He doesn't say it was not Oswald. He doesn't say it was Oswald, but he doesn't say it wasn't.
He made it imply that.
I'm not implying that Jimmy Burt said it was Oswald. I've never used Jimmy Burt as a witness.
Okay, so look, it's very simple. Okay, very, very simple. Jimmy Burt said it was not Oswald. Okay, and I know what your argument is, Bill. He did not say that. That statement is not written in his FBI interview. Well,
Jimmy Burton did not tell the FBI in 1964 or 1963. It was December 63. He did not tell the FBI that the man was not Oswald. It's not in the report. He didn't tell them that
because they didn't ask them the question. It took Chapman and Harris, the real investigators, to ask him that question.
That's absurd. That's absurd.
That's just telling you, it's not in the report. So it's not in his report with the FBI. Why isn't it?
The FBI went out to interview Jimmy Burton to find out what he saw. And if the man was not Oswald, he would have told him that at that moment, and it would have been in the report, Matt. It's not in the report.
Either they didn't ask him, or they asked him and he told them, and they didn't write it down. So no matter what, there's no information in there about any identification or Oswald or anything. So what we have to rely on is when he was asked that and when it was written down about what his response was. And he was asked in 68 and in the 70s, and he said it was not Oswald. End of story. It's as simple as that. He said it was not Oswald. Next topic.
No, the next topic is Jimmy Burt is a witness for the killer being neither Oswald or being Oswald, but he's not a witness for the killer being someone other than Oswald.
Yes, it is. He said it was not Oswald. He said it was not Oswald.
I'm getting kind of hung up on Jimmy Burt.
Yeah, he said it was not.
So basically, you have William Scoggins, Helen Markham, Barbara Davis and Virginia Davis, Sam Ginyard and Ted Calloway. These 6 men and women attended a police lineup, 5 of them on Friday night, Scoggins on Saturday. All 6 of them picked Oswald as the man they saw either shoot the police officer or running from the scene with a gun in his hand right after the shots. And also, Jim Lavelle told me personally, for what it's worth, in the summer of 2019, I was in his living room for almost 6 hours, and he told me personally, you can give this however much weight you want to, but he told me that they were certain that the lineups were on the up and up because the last thing they wanted was for any identification to be thrown out at a trial. And I've also talked to district attorneys, more than one now, by the way, and every one of them have told me when I laid out the scenario, unbiased, that even if you feel the lineups should be thrown out, that doesn't mean the judge would not allow an in-courtroom identification by the witness. So we don't know. In fact, I believe I know, but I can't state it as a fact. So we don't know for sure that Scoggins, Markham, Davis, Calloway, and Ginyard, I feel like when they're up on the witness stand and the let's say the lineups are thrown out, which I don't think they would be, but let's say they were.
Yeah, they would.
No, you don't know that. You do not know that at all. But let's say, for example, for now, that they were thrown out. That doesn't stop the prosecuting attorney from asking these 6 witnesses, hey, can you point out the man you saw in the courtroom today? And these 6 witnesses, if they picked him out of lineup, they're going to point him out to right there on the defendant's chair right there. They're going to point right to Oswald because they picked, and I know that because they picked him at the lineup.
They picked him, but they didn't identify him.
That doesn't make any sense.
It does pick.
Chris, can you explain this to me real quick? What that means? Because Matt,
hold on.
I don't know what that means.
So you said Jim Lavelle in your interview with, I believe it was on Quorum Radio. Anyway, you said, quote, Lavelle told you that the police, quote, did everything right in the lineups, end quote. I wrote it down. Is that true? Lavelle told you this.
Now I honestly could not tell you his exact words, but I got the point that he was making.
In your interview on Quorum Radio, Bill, you said Lavelle told you the police, quote, did everything right in the lineups. Wow. I mean, folks with even a cursory knowledge about this case would leap off their chairs at this outrageous comment. Okay, I want to close this off by saying, in 1979, this isn't a quote. In 1979, Larry Harris, who was the world's leading authority on the Tippit case, he passed away the year I was born, actually.
You say was or is?
I said was. He was the world's leading authority. He In 1979, Larry Harris asked Dr. Robert Buckout, who was a leading U.S. expert on eyewitness testimony and identification, to evaluate the police lineups. Okay, so he's very, very qualified. Okay, one of the best in the nation. He did so and concluded, quote, by any stretch of the imagination, virtually every rule in the book was violated in the conduct of these lineups. The results of any of these lineups, conducted as poorly and under its hysterical circumstances as they were, should be regarded as utterly worthless. End quote. That is a leading U.S. at the time, the leading U.S. expert on eyewitness testimony and identification.
I don't care who that is. Jim Lavelle told me that they did everything that they had to do to make sure the lineups were on the up and up and would not be thrown
so I just want to point out how insane that quote was. How about how?
So Jim Lavelle made an insane quote then, according to you. Made an insane comment.
I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that. I knew Jim Lavelle since I was 16, so I'm not going to say a bad word.
Well, let me ask you a question. Does Jim Lavelle have credibility or not?
I went to his funeral. I'm not going.
That doesn't mean anything. That's beside the point.
I'm not going to say a bad word about him, but I'm saying that quote, they did everything right in the lineups, is outrageous. Next topic.
Is Jim Lavelle credible or not?
I'm not here to talk about Jim Lavelle.
Okay, so
I knew him since I was 16. I went to the man's funeral. I'm not going to say a bad word about him. Next topic.
Regarding the witnesses, though, there was still also Mary Brock, by the way, for what it's worth. Her husband, Robert Brock, worked at the Shell station that was at the corner of basically 1 block west of Patton and Jefferson. And she said that Oswald made his way behind the Texaco station. He was wearing a jacket when he did so. And she identified this man as being Oswald. So for what it's worth, Mary Brock has Lee Harvey Oswald behind the Texaco station wearing a jacket.
And and her husband standing right next to her
could not be sure one way or the other.
I can finish. Could not identify Oswald.
Correct. What does that mean? It doesn't mean anything.
I think people. I'm not sure if I summarized. I did not summarize this in round 1 last year, but I think people forget that 12 witnesses refused to identify Oswald. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. Next topic.
Robert Brock refusing to identify Oswald is not to be taken as Robert Brock saying the guy was not Oswald.
I never said it was.
Okay, then what's your point? Then what's your point?
Refused to identify Oswald. Okay, and
Mary Brock said the guy was Oswald and he had a jacket and he went behind the Texaco station.
And the guy and her husband next to her can't identify Oswald. Next topic.
Ready to go on and move on. The next topic will go to Matt, and that will be about automatic shells at the scene.
Automatic shells? Okay. This is okay. So when Oswald was arrested, he, of course, had a 6-shot revolver on him. However, in the Tippit murder, there are many references to the killer using an automatic weapon. Simply put, if true, Oswald could not be the slayer of Officer Tippit. So what's the truth? At 1:37 p.m., Officer Summers reported over the radio that an eyeball witness told him the killer was, quote, armed with a .32 dark finish automatic pistol. That's on the Dallas radio tapes, volume 17, page 416. 4 minutes later, at 1:41 p.m., Sergeant Hill radioed, quote, the shell at the scene indicates that the suspect is armed with an automatic .38 rather than a revolver. Okay, and that's volume 17, page 417. Witness Lewis. There's a guy named Lewis, L.J. Lewis. He told the FBI that the killer was carrying an automatic pistol. That is volume 20, page 534. Witness Warren Reynolds. He told the FBI that the killer had an automatic. That's volume 25, page 731. Witness Ted Calloway, he actually told Greg Lowery, fellow Dallas researcher, that the killer was that he actually saw the killer reloading with a clip, which meant he was an automatic. Now he later said he was mistaken about that. So let's, and he, once he realized that it went against the official story, probably he doubled down on it. So let's throw him out. I think that's fair because
So we're getting Matt Douthit speculation as if it means anything.
Again, this is what Ted Calloway told Greg Larry.
You're speculating. You added your speculation.
Okay, I'm not finished. First of all, so hold on. Now we have all these references to an automatic weapon being used, and automatic shells. However, many of the witnesses saw the killer tapping out the shells, which means it was a revolver. However, it seems inconceivable that Sergeant Hill could be wrong when he's holding in his hand a shell that says 38 auto in it. He not only saw it, but acted upon it, again, making that radio call. So this is a conundrum. So this is a conundrum. This is a puzzle that we have to figure out. Could that shell could that shell have been unrelated? Could it have been there previously? It's possible. Could there have been, I don't think this is entirely possible. Could there have been a second shooter and left behind an automatic shell? Who knows? Plausible, but this is something we have to figure out. You can respond.
Well, let me ask you, first of all, do you think there were two killers?
Two shooters or two killers?
Two shooters. Do you think there were two gunmen?
I have no way of knowing.
You don't want to offer an opinion, though, whether you believe?
I have no way of knowing. I have no way of knowing.
Okay, so Jimmy Burt, Bill Smith, Domingo Benavides.
I'm not talking about a second shooter. I'm talking about automatics.
William Scoggins. They tell you do have a way of knowing. You just ignore it. They tell you there was only one gunman. Okay.
I'm not talking about a second gunman. I'm talking about
here's the important point. As far as you said Gerald Hill. Gerald Hill was not when Gerald Hill made his report over the police radio.
What Bill's going to do is he's going to bash him and say he has a big mouth, and he's going to tarnish.
I was not going to do that at all. So
he's going to tarnish this decorated officer.
I would appreciate it if you'd let me talk and let me say what I want to say about Gerald Hill instead of you telling everybody what I'm going to say about Gerald Hill, which I wasn't going to say.
You're right.
Is that fair enough?
I'm sorry, my mistake.
Okay, right. All right. So Gerald Hill, when he made his report over the police radio that the suspect was armed with an automatic, the shells at the scene indicate the suspect is armed with an automatic, or however it was he said it. I believe it's pretty close. He did not have the shells in his hands when he said it. You said that he had the shell in his hand when he made this report, and he should have therefore known it was not an automatic. He didn't have it. He simply knew that shells were found at the scene, and he made the report. He explains this later, Matt. He explains it. He specifically explained it. He assumed they were automatic because he knew they were found at the scene. He was not holding the shell in his hands when he made that radio report. And let me ask you something else. Why weren't shells found near the patrol car?
Sorry.
If any of these shells were an automatic, they would have been automatically ejected and found near the patrol car. No shells were found near where the killer was standing when he fired the shots. You do understand that? I mean, I know you know this. Automatic weapon automatically ejects the shell out as it's fired. So why weren't any shells found near the patrol car? Can you answer that question?
Okay, so as I said, I'm not saying all the shells were from an automatic. I said one shell found at the scene was automatic, and that's what we have to figure out. Was it there before? I think, was it there previously? Because this is Texas, bullets. Was it there before? It's possible.
But Matt, you're ignoring what I'm telling you. Gerald Hill was not holding the shell in his hand when he made the report.
Yes, he was.
No, he wasn't. He absolutely was not.
He said, quote, "I looked at the bottom of the shell." He looked at it. It's in his hand.
No, that was not before he made the report. That was after, once Poe handed the shells to him.
He said, "I looked at the bottom." And for those who are listening and don't know much about weapons and ammunition, a automatic shell is very different from a revolver shell. It's shorter, and it says 38 auto.
It's not. Hold on now. It's not very different. First of all,
it's obvious to any
They're different. They're different, but let's don't exaggerate to make our point seem more valid.
Okay, go on.
Well, I'm just asking you, how come those shells were found near where the killer was standing?
I'm not saying. Again, I said There is one automatic shell at the scene. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just where we are. Okay, now Gerald. But it was not placed into evidence. Okay, so
it wasn't placed into evidence because it didn't exist. This is Gerald Hill, Matt, after the fact, said he assumed when he made that radio report, he assumed the shells were automatic because he was aware they were found at the scene. He specifically spells this out. He admits now, he's passed away now, but he admits since then that he messed up by making that report. He assumed they were automatic because he knew they were found at the scene. He was not holding the shell in his hand when he made that radio report. And also, you said Ted Calloway ID'd the weapon as being a automatic, which he did.
I dismissed that. Yes.
How close do you think Ted Calloway was at the closest to Oswald? Are you aware of this at all or not?
Okay, so we're pivoting back to Ted Calloway.
Well, no, this is about. Listen, you brought up Ted Calloway identifying the weapon as being an automatic weapon. So let's talk about Ted Calloway. How close was Ted Calloway? Do you know or not? It's okay if you won't.
We're not talking about Ted Calloway. I dismissed him.
What do you mean you dismissed him? You just relied on him. You just relied on Ted Calloway for saying it was a dark automatic. It was dark finish automatic. Right?
Nope. Dark finish automatic. No.
What did you say? What did you say about Calloway just a minute ago when you were talking about his description of the weapon?
Calloway told researcher Greg Lowry over the phone that the killer was reloading with a clip, which meant it was a revolver. Now, later, Calloway said that he was mistaken. So that's why I'm not relying on that part right now. But that's just what exists. That's just what's out there, okay?
Calloway never says that the killer was reloading with a clip.
Yes, he did. He told it to Greg Lowry, Dallas researcher, who called him on the phone.
No, he doesn't.
Yes, he does.
No, he doesn't. All you got to do is go read his testimony. That's what he tells you.
No,
he doesn't mention a clip in his Warren Commission testimony. All right.
So what? So
I'm going to answer the question for you. Calloway was.
You rely on him on the Morse code. That's not in his testimony, but anyway. So that's hypocritical.
I haven't even brought that up.
Yeah. Okay, but anyway.
Calloway, the FBI came out and they said, "Mr. Calloway, where were you standing?" He says, "I was right here on the sidewalk." And they said, "And where was the guy standing when he was at his closest point to you?" He said he was right there. And he points across the street at the other sidewalk over there, south on Patton. So they pull out a tape measure. They measured it. And they said, "Okay, now you were standing there and he was about right here." Calloway says, "Yes." It was 56 feet. Okay.
So you're trying to derail.
I'm simply trying to say that. How in the hell could Calloway or L.J. Lewis and all the other witnesses that you brought up that described this weapon be sure it was an automatic weapon or revolver or who the hell knows?
Calloway.
It was covered by Oswald's right hand.
Again, we were talking about Gerald Hill. We're pivoting now, which we shouldn't do. Okay, so.
No, we're not pivoting. You brought up Calloway.
And I dismissed him. I'm not relying on him. I dismissed him. I'm not relying on him. So
you brought up Ted Calloway as an argument.
I dismissed him. I said that's a piece.
Okay, so you don't think Calloway saw an automatic weapon then?
No, I
you
don't think so.
Okay, I'm not sure why you mentioned him then. Okay, it's fine.
Because that piece of information is out there. I'm just saying. I'm not saying that's the
so
truth.
You don't believe
that's what's out there.
Okay, I'm not sure why you mentioned it then. If you don't believe it, I'm not sure why you brought it up. Okay,
it relates to the topic of an automatic. But anyway,
so I have one final question, if you don't mind, and I've asked it a couple times, but you haven't answered. Why weren't any shells found near the patrol car? If they were automatic, they would have been found there.
I don't believe any of the shells. I'm sorry. I only believe one shell was an automatic. That's a fact.
It's a fact that you believe it. It sure as the hell is not a fact that it's an automatic shell.
Gerald Hill says, I looked at the bottom of the shell, and it says, it's stamped right on there. 38 auto. There's no mistaking it. He not only
there is mistaking it. Gerald Hill told you.
I give you a lot of time to talk. Listen,
there is mistaking it. Gerald Hill told you he made a mistake. Are you not aware of this interview Gerald Hill gave?
No, he never said he made a mistake.
Yes, he did. He admitted. Gerald Hill admitted it. It's a filmed interview, and he admitted that he assumed the shells were automatic because they were found at the scene.
Can I get my point across?
When you say things that are incorrect, I'm going to correct you.
It's not incorrect. No, he said I looked at the bottom of the shell. And stamped right on the shell is 38 auto. Okay, and
right, I'm aware that he said that.
I cannot get a word out. Can I finish? Okay. Again, like I said, 30. There's for a police officer. There's no mistaking a 38 auto and a and a 38 revolver.
That's a bullshit comment to make. That's a bullshit comment to make. It can happen easily.
No,
and the shells don't differ that greatly as you would have everybody believe.
Let me finish. He looked at the bottom of the shell, and he not only acted on it. No, sorry. He not only saw it, but he acted upon it, making that radio call.
That's not true at all. That is not true.
Yes.
Nope. He was not holding the shell in his hand. He had not seen the shells with his own eyes when he made that radio report.
He did.
No, he had not.
He saw the shell. I looked at the bottom of the shell. Quote,
he says that he says that after the fact he saw the shell later and said that, not before he made the radio report. You're missing it up. When he looked at the shell, it was after Poe gave the shells to him, which was after he'd already made the radio report. He made the radio report based solely on being aware that some shells were found, so he assumed they were automatic. Why wouldn't he? What dumbass killer ejects shells from a revolver manually and throws them down? Oswald did.
So since apparently you don't believe me, I'll read you from your favorite book, With Malice. It says, in the radio transmission, Hill mentioned that the shell found at the scene were 38s. Asked how he determined that the shells were 38 caliber, Hill replied, quote, "You can tell that from the shell. 38 is stamped on the bottom of it. I looked on the bottom and stamped," and that's a quote from your favorite book.
That isn't exactly. You're not telling me anything I didn't already know, but that you're not addressing the issue here.
Yes,
the issue is that Gerald Hill did not look at the shell until after the report.
I don't know. Listen.
That you're misinformed on this. Gerald Hill himself tells you that he. I'll find it. I'm sure this debate will be posted in the groups, and I'll post it under the discussion of it.
Okay. Listen. To sum up, it's clearly obvious to any police officer that an automatic.
It is not. Because Gerald Hill himself messed it up. It's not clearly obvious.
Chris, can you tell him to let me finish? Okay, good. So, 38 autos are completely different. I'm sorry, they're different from 38 specials, okay? He's looking at it. He looked at the bottom. It says stamped right on there, 38 auto. He made it.
You keep repeating yourself.
I can't even get a word out.
You keep repeating yourself. You just add to the length of this debate.
That's because it's true.
It's not true. You're misinformed. Again, Hill did not have the shell in his hand until after he made the report.
Okay, well,
he said the shells at the scene indicate the suspect is armed with an automatic because he knew shells were found.
Yep.
And he made an assumption. He says that. He tells you this later. You just aren't aware of it, I guess.
Okay. And he even so officially there were 2 shells, but if we go by this automatic, first of all there were 2 shells found first, and then 2 shells found later in the day. So just for the listeners, we're talking about the first 2 shells that were found, but we would be talking about a third shell, the third an automatic shell that was found. Okay, now Gerald Hill was asked about that by Stavis Ellis, who was a cop, and Stavis Ellis asked him, what was up about that automatic shell? This is a private conversation they had. What was up about that 38 automatic, that extra shell, that automatic shell that you found at the Tippit scene? And Sergeant Hill said, yeah, we did find an automatic shell, but it was unrelated to the case. And that's why, okay, so that would explain why it's not in evidence, why this other shell isn't evidence. And in fact, in Hill's testimony, he actually slips up and he said, yeah, we found 3 shells.
Right.
But he meant to say 2, but 2 is the official number, so he slipped in. And Domingo.
How do you know he slipped up?
I'm almost finished. And Donnie Benavides, who found those shells, he also slipped up and he said he found 3 shells in 1967 on CBS. But anyway, so as I said, it's very possible that extra shell was there before. It's very possible. I'm not saying as a fact there were 2 killers. I'm not saying that all the shells were automatic. I'm saying this is a problem in the case, and this is a possibly logical explanation that it was unrelated, and that's why it's not in evidence. That's possible.
It's also possible that Gerald Hill was talking to some blowhard and didn't want to admit that he made a mistake. And so this private conversation you're talking about, he said, well, yeah, we found an automatic shell, not realizing that this was going to be talked about later. He's trying to be dismissive. Gerald Hill was embarrassed. Gerald Hill was embarrassed about the mistake he made. It was a huge mistake.
Mistake. He's looking right at it. It says 38.
He was not, Matt. He was not looking right at it when he made the radio report. He's embarrassed about that mistake. He's embarrassed of the mistake he made by saying the suspect is armed with an automatic weapon because the shells at the scene indicated.
It's incomprehensible that he could be wrong when he's looking at it and he says he looked at the bottom of it and it's 38. No matter what time frame it was, no matter when he looked at it, he still looked at it. And on the bottom, which he says he looked at, it says 38 auto. So there was a 38 auto shell found there. Okay? So we have so that's a problem, and I gave you a logical, plausible explanation that it was unrelated. Next topic.
So we can add this shell to the list of evidence or items found at the scene that were never placed into evidence that mysteriously disappeared. We can just add this to it.
Yes.
Okay, because why? Conspirators were out there making evidence disappear, or someone was out there making the call on what gets admitted and what doesn't?
Never said that. Nope, never said that.
Well, I'm asking you. Who's making the call on this supposed automatic shell not being placed into evidence?
I have no way of knowing. I have no way of knowing.
So this is all hypothetical. This is all hypothetical then.
All we know is that there was an extra shell there that was found. It was an automatic, and it was never placed into evidence. Most likely, as I said, it was unrelated. But if it wasn't unrelated, it could be evidence of something bigger. But we don't have any more evidence than that. All we have is what I told you. That's all it is, and all we can do is speculate.
That is all you're doing. That's for sure.
Yes, we're speculating based on what the evidence is, based on what was seen. It's clearly stamped right on the shell. 38.
I understand that. I understand that.
Yes.
And Gerald Hill addressed this mistake.
Well, yeah, he addressed it publicly, but privately, he said something else.
Because he's talking to some guy, not one to admit to something that embarrassed him.
He's not just some guy. He's talking to Stavis.
I'm talking about to Gerald Hill. He was just some guy, really. Quite honestly. To Gerald Hill, he was just some guy that he was talking to. A police officer.
People admit stuff privately all the time, but no. There was a 38 auto shell found. You can disagree with that.
No, there wasn't.
You can disagree with that. It's a free country, but I'm telling you what the evidence is. He looked at it, and it's inconceivable.
No, you're gonna have to tell me where's the evidence or proof that a 38? There is no evidence of it.
Of what?
That a 38 automatic was found. There's no evidence of it.
I told you.
No, there's not.
He said I looked at the bottom, and then he said I looked at the bottom. What's stamped at the bottom? 38 auto. And he gets on the radio and says it's an automatic. It's super simple.
But I'm asking you to tell me who's
responsible
for making this. Why was this shell not admitted? Who makes this call? Who are these conspirators deciding?
It's not
so you're just raising questions but not answering them.
That's what I want to know. I want to know why it wasn't admitted into evidence. But Hill said privately it wasn't admitted into evidence because it was unrelated.
It wasn't admitted into evidence because it's fictional.
What?
It wasn't admitted into evidence because it didn't exist.
Again, you can believe that. It's a free country, but I gave you the evidence, all the evidence. The listener can decide for themselves. I gave you all the evidence. Next topic.
Listeners can decide for themselves. That's right. No shells were found near the patrol car.
I'm not saying that was found.
Automatics would have been.
I never said it was found near the patrol car. I'm saying a third shell was found at the scene.
So in Oak Cliff, suburb of Dallas, in 1963, we just happened to have bullet casings laying all over the place in residential neighborhoods.
I said bullet casings. Again, I live in Texas. This is a common thing.
There aren't bullet casings just laying on the ground, coincidentally in the same vicinity where a policeman was shot.
I never said they're lying everywhere. Again, you're trying to. Oh boy, you're just trying to.
The whole thing's absurd. The whole theory is absurd.
It's not absurd. I just told you. There's an automatic shell found at the scene. It wasn't admitted into evidence. Sergeant Hill said, "Oh, it was unrelated. That could be the truth, or it could mean something else. But that's all we have. That's all we have to go on. That's what the evidence is. You can't change the evidence. That's what the evidence is. He got it. He looked at it, got on the radio, and it's okay." Okay.
Go ahead,
Next
Chris.
topic. Hello?
So the next topic would be the jacket.
It's your turn, so yeah, go.
Okay. So basically, well, so Erling Roberts said on the day of the murder to a reporter that Oswald left wearing a short gray coat, regardless of what color she described it as being. She said it was basically a short gray coat. Whether it was light or dark is indifferent to my point. We have Oswald leaving the room in the house wearing a jacket, and she testified to the Warren Commission that he was zipping it up as he went out the door. Helen Markham said the jacket was grayish tan that the killer was wearing. Domingo Benavides said it was light beige. Barbara Davis said it was a dark coat, and then Virginia Davis said it was light brown or tan. Ted Calloway said it was light tannish gray. Sam Ginier said it was light gray. Scoggins said it was light colored or light blue. Bill Smith said it was light brown, and Jimmy Burt said it was light colored. Okay, now obviously Warren Commission Exhibit 162 was found underneath a car behind the Texaco station, where I told you earlier, Mary Brock places Lee Harvey Oswald with a light colored jacket on. Okay. Marina Oswald told the FBI that Lee owned a light gray jacket. The jacket that was found under the car had microscopic fibers inside one of the sleeves. This was per an FBI report found by Dale Myers when he was at the National Archives. In this FBI report dated December 1963, it said dark blue, gray, black, and orange yellow cotton fibers were found inside the sleeve. Now, they also removed test fibers for comparison purposes from the shirt that Oswald was wearing when he was arrested. And these test fibers were the same, they were also dark blue, gray, black, and orange yellow cotton fibers. So when you compare microscopic fibers forensically, you're doing so based on three characteristics: color, shade, and twist. The colors, shade, and twist, these fibers that were found inside the sleeve of the jacket found under the car behind the Texaco station, were the same exact color, shade, and twist as test fibers removed from Oswald's arrest shirt. And my biggest question is, when he left the rooming house, Oswald had on a jacket. And when he's seen by Johnny Brewer testified to the Warren Commission that Oswald had no jacket on when he saw him out on the sidewalk, ducking into his little vestibule there at the shoe store. Why did Oswald get rid of the jacket between the rooming house and the shoe store? Forget 10th and Patton. Pretend like Oswald was never at 10th and Patton. Forget the jacket found under the car behind the Texaco station for a moment. He's at the rooming house, zipping up a jacket as he goes out the door. He's at the shoe store on Jefferson with no jacket on. And that's according to Johnny Brewer's Warren Commission testimony in 1964, no jacket. Nobody's ever been able to answer for me satisfactorily, reasonably, why Oswald ditched his jacket between the rooming house and the shoe store.
So what are you not telling listeners? What are you omitting from that?
I pretty much made my case right there.
What do you think I'm going to say?
Go ahead and say it, Matt, whatever you're going to say.
This is a good question. What do you think my response is going to be?
Well, when I asked you last year, you said, we don't know what happened to the jacket that he was wearing when he left the rooming house.
Exactly. And now I have a better answer.
Well, you don't have a better answer. You have a different answer, but it's not better. It's not any better.
It's better. Yeah. I did. Yeah, correct. Okay. So first
you can bring up what Johnny Brewer supposedly told Oliver Stone's crew.
Okay. So first of all, you declared that the fibers found in the jacket match Oswald's shirt, right? And same thing with round one last year. I did not really have a good answer for that either. I brought up, cross-contamination and that stuff. But I'll just say this:
which there's no evidence of. Out of the
millions of pages in the National Archives, only a single page, random page, claims this. Wasn't mentioned in the Warren report or testimony. Wasn't mentioned by the HSCA. Who did the alleged test? When? Where? Where are the test results? Where are the lab reports? See, we don't know jack. All we have is a single random page claiming this. Absolute hearsay. Moving
It's
on.
an FBI report. It's an FBI report, Matt.
Yeah.
That's in evidence.
It's just
That
one.
says
There's only one page in the National Archives that mentions this. It's just one page.
it's
one
how
page.
many reports do you want them to make? 8
It's
reports
just a claim.
so that you can be happy and say there's 8 pages?
Who
One report.
who did the test?
The FBI. It's an
Who?
FBI report.
I want names. Who did it? Who?
You tell me.
No, I'm asking you. You're making the claim.
My claim is that these fibers were compared forensically,
Yes.
and they were matched, the same color, the same shade, and the same twist. And when we're done, we can post
The test.
information about this report in the discussion section. It's not a
It's just
problem.
one information. You see what you did to slide that in there? No, it's just one page that claims this. One page.
How many pages do you want there to be? What difference does that make?
Where I just asked you the question. First of all, who did the test? Who did this test? Alleged test. Who?
I said I have to look it up. We can post the information about the FBI
No,
report.
again, there's only one page. It doesn't tell you. It doesn't tell you who did it. Who did it? Tell me. You don't know.
Matt,
We don't know.
There's an FBI report, Matt.
Yes, I know. It's one page.
My claim is that there's an FBI report that was found in the National Archives in College Park, Maryland, that says the fibers found inside the jacket
I know what you're saying. I know what you're
were a
saying. No.
dead match with
that
the
is
fibers taken
CD7.
from Oswald's arrest shirt.
I know what your claim is. That CD7 page 352. I know. But no, tell me, who did the test? I want names. Since you're making the claim. Who did this test?
I'd have to go look up that information.
There is no information. It's just a single page.
So because you haven't been able to find it, there's no information.
You're the one who's making the claim that there's evidence.
Because you haven't been able to find it means that there's no information. Is that what you're saying?
There's nothing else.
Let me get you to commit. Let me get you to commit. Are you saying that there's no information about who did this that can be found out there about who did this examination?
If there was, it would be published in your favorite book, but it's not. All we have is a single random page that just suddenly claims this. Listen, for the listeners reading, we know who all the other items of evidence that were tested. We know the names of everyone and of who tested them. And, we have papers and results and everything. But this is just a random claim on a random document in the National Archives. We don't know, and it wasn't mentioned in the Warren Report or the HSCA or in, so who did the alleged test? We don't know. When was it done? We don't know. Where? Where are the test results?
The testing was done by lab technicians at the FBI.
Who? I want names. Who did this?
Lab techs at the FBI. That's
names.
all I know. But it wasn't like privately contracted out or anything like that. These were lab techs at the FBI.
Where are the test results? Where are the lab reports? Where are the notes? We have nothing. We just have a claim on a random document. That doesn't cut the mustard, bro. It doesn't. We just have a claim. We have a claim. A claim.
We
don't have evidence. We don't have evidence. We have a claim. Anyway, you said Johnny Brewer, he testified he saw Oswald with no jacket. But, and you asked me about that, and I gave a bad response. I said, well, we don't know. But I do have a better answer now. Or
before you get to that, let me tell you this. This isn't with malice, okay? FBI. This is regarding the fibers and the report found by Dale Myers.
Yes, it's
FBI RIF 124-10009-10499. It's an FBI memo from Jevons to Conrad dated December 3rd of 63, which I already stated. Now, it says here, since fiber characteristics are not exclusive to any one particular shirt, the results of the FBI lab exam only mean that the fibers found in the gray zipper jacket came from Oswald's arrest shirt or another shirt of the same material, which is what I've always said. Nearly 4 months after this report was complete, the Warren Commission initiated an investigation into the jacket's laundry tag in an effort to identify the owner, adding, the jacket has been identified by certain witnesses as the jacket of Oswald, even though Matt Douthit said that's not true. But we would prefer more exact identification. This is House Select Committee Assassination RIF 180-10060-10246, which is a letter J. Lee Rankin to Hoover, March of 64. Now I'm almost done. Former Warren Commission counsel David Beelan was asked in 1998 letter why the Warren Commission never used the lab report to establish ownership of the jacket or to show Oswald's presence near the Tippit murder scene. In his reply, Beelan wrote, there already was overwhelming evidence to tie Oswald to the Tippit murder shooting in light of the positive identification of Oswald as the man with the gun by William Scoggins, Barbara Davis, Virginia Davis, Ted Calloway, Sam Gideon, and Helen Markham. Moreover, Oswald was apprehended with the murder weapon in his hand, as confirmed by the cartridge cases turned over to the police by witnesses at the Tippit murder scene. At the time of the Warren Commission investigation, experts retained by the commission determined that individual fibers, like hairs, are not unique. Under all of the circumstances, I did not believe that the quality of the evidence compared with the ballistic identification of the cartridge cases found at the murder scene. We know now through DNA analysis that hairs can be identified as uniquely coming from a particular individual. In other words, they didn't think it was worth it. And he's probably right. Because all the fibers will tell you, and this is what I also was going to say, all the fibers are going to tell you is that whoever was wearing the jacket either was wearing Oswald's shirt when he was arrested, the shirt that Oswald was wearing when he was arrested, or they were wearing a shirt with the exact same fiber characteristics.
Again.
So therefore, no one is using the fibers found in the sleeve, the microscopic fibers found in the sleeve of the jacket, as proof that Oswald was wearing that jacket. We're simply saying that the fibers found in the sleeve are a dead match with the fibers taken from Oswald's arrest shirt. And there's no evidence of any contamination either, cross contamination.
So you said so what you read, you say it's not, no one's claiming that's proof. Do you know what the name of the chapter is that you just read that from? Proof positive. But anyway, okay. So
that doesn't, nobody's claiming, no, and Dale Myers in his own words specifically spells out in parentheses, and I read that. So
again, everything you just said.
He specifically spells out that just because fibers were found in the jacket that matched the shirt does not mean as a fact that Oswald was wearing that jacket. It just means that whoever was wearing the jacket was also wearing a shirt exactly like Oswald's with the same fiber characteristics.
Are you done?
So get back to like what happened to the jacket Oswald was wearing when he left the rooming house, between the rooming house and the shoe store. Because Johnny Brewer told the Warren Commission in 1964, as a fact, he was directly asked if Oswald was wearing a jacket. He said no.
Okay, so we'll get to that in a second. Okay, so everything that you just read does not debunk anything I just said. Like I said, all we have is a claim on a single piece of paper that these fibers match. It wasn't mentioned by anyone, anywhere. We don't know who tested it. We don't know where it was tested. We don't have lab reports. We don't have test results. We don't have notes. We do on all the other pieces of evidence, which is credible. Now, if there was all this stuff on this fiber evidence, then yeah, that would be convincing. But we don't. We just have a claim on a random piece of paper out of the millions of pages in the National Archives, just a claim. And it's not backed by anything. Probably they just, who knows, they probably threw it in there because some eager beaver like you might jump on it because they knew their case wasn't good. But anyway,
well, I'm just telling you, it's a memo from Jimmins to Conrad, December 63, talking about the FBI, the results of the lab techs is what it is.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking at the same page you are. Okay.
Right. Okay. So you asked the question. It's a memo from Jevons to Conrad, dated December 3rd, 1963, discussing that lab technicians.
Who are the lab technicians? Who?
I have no idea. I've never seen.
We have no idea.
I've never seen the memo.
Hearsay. This is just a claim. This is just hearsay. It's just a claim. It's hearsay. We have nothing.
Why is it hearsay? Why is it hearsay?
It's a claim. We have nothing to go on.
Why is it hearsay? And do you ever rely on hearsay?
Forget about hearsay. It's a
No,
claim.
hold on a minute now. You talking
a
about, you
claim.
said hearsay. You talk about Al Chapman and Jimmy Burt in 1968. Jimmy Burt saying it was not Oswald. That's hearsay.
We have the raw interview transcript of that interview. But anyway, getting back on track, this right here is just a claim. A claim that's not backed up by anything. Now, like I said, if we
It's
had
just a claim by Al Chapman. Also,
no, it's not.
different.
We have it's in the interviews in the National Archives. Oh my God!
Matt, it's still just be.
No.
Is it audio? Is it
This
audio
is a-
or video or
this
film?
is-
Is it
listen.
audio or film? Jimmy Burt.
It's a
neither.
transcript. It's a transcript based on audio. Listen, I'm sure the audio is in there. I don't think anyone has gone that deep, but we have the transcript. I can post it for you. But anyway,
You can't be sure there's audio.
this whole fiber thing is a claim. There's no evidence to back it up. It wasn't mentioned by the Warner Report or the HSCA or David Bellin in his who you read from in his book. Wasn't mentioned by anyone. Just it's a claim on a single random page. And
Bellin did not mention the fibers because he didn't feel like when you already had the shells incriminating Oswald and the witnesses incriminating Oswald, the fibers didn't mean anything. And he's right.
We're talking about the fibers. So again, there's nothing to back this up on. I didn't have a good answer in round 1 last year, but so I think this was a better answer. Okay, so you mentioned Johnny Brewer testified that he saw Oswald with no jacket. And you say, oh, why would ditch his jacket? Well, as I pointed out a couple months ago, as I recently pointed out, if you sit down and talk with Brewer...
You pointed it out because I told you.
Let me finish. But as I recently pointed out, if you actually sit down and talk with Brewer, he'll tell you...
You don't know that. You have no way of knowing that. You have no way of knowing that.
I'm not even done making my claim, my argument, and he's interrupting. Okay. Third time, Jesus, as I recently pointed out, if you sit down and talk with Brewer, he'll tell you that he never read his printed Warren Commission testimony until 1991, and that actually Oswald was in fact wearing a jacket. Okay? So, and that is JFK, the book of the film, the documented screenplay, which had pages 173 to 174. So I'm turning it around on you. This proves that he didn't kill Tippit.
No, it doesn't.
Hold on. I just want to tell this to the reader, to the listeners. Never take at face value what a document says. It's always double check things with the actual eyewitnesses. Okay? Always have to do that. I think I said that earlier.
First of all, Oswald, Johnny Brewer said in 64 to the Warren Commission, they asked him straight up, was he wearing a jacket? He said no. But let's say for a second that Oswald was wearing a jacket in front of the shoe store. How does that prove that he didn't kill Tippit? Because
your claim is that he ditched it.
No, but it's two different things. You're trying to take two different things and combine them into one. Okay, your claim right now is that Oswald wearing a jacket, as supposedly seen by Johnny Brewer on Jefferson, is proof that he didn't kill Oswald. That he didn't kill Tippit. And I'm asking you, how is that possibly true?
Your whole argument is he wasn't wearing a jacket, so that proves he killed Tippit because he ditched his jacket. But I'm turning it around on you.
Forget Warren Commission Exhibit 162 and forget the jacket found under the car. Forget it for a second. You said that Oswald wearing a jacket on Jefferson is proof he didn't kill Tippit. And I'm asking you how. How is that proof?
Wait, say it again. I missed the last part.
Forget the jacket found under the car. Forget Warren Commission Exhibit 162. Forget that for a second. You said that by Johnny Brewer saying that Oswald was wearing a jacket on Jefferson, it's proof that he didn't kill Oswald. That's what you just they didn't kill Tippit. You said that that's proof that Oswald did not kill Tippit.
Yeah.
And I'm asking you, how is that proof?
Because if he's still wearing a jacket, for those that
every witness said the killer was wearing a jacket. Every one of them.
Exactly. Okay, let me finish. For those that don't know, the official story is that Oswald ditched his jacket.
I already said forget ditching the jacket, Matt. Forget that part. Every witness at the scene at 10th and Patton had Oswald wearing a jacket or the killer wearing a jacket.
Correct. So what are we talking about? What's your question?
My question is very clear. You said that Oswald, if he was wearing a jacket on Jefferson, which he wasn't, but if he was, you said that's proof he didn't kill Tippit. I'm asking you, how is that proof?
It's proof because the official story is that he ditched it. And if he is still wearing a jacket, then he didn't kill Tippit because
if he's still wearing a jacket, all it means is he didn't ditch it. It doesn't mean he didn't kill Tippit. How are you making that leap to that proving he didn't kill Tippit?
Because the official story, like I said, is that he ditched his jacket. is that he did. By the way, it's your argument that because he was supposedly not wearing a jacket, that means he killed Tippit. That's what your argument is, right? So I'm flipping it around on you. Johnny Brewer, if you actually talk with them, says
I'm not saying because Oswald
I'm
wasn't
turning it around. That proves that he didn't kill Tippit. See what I mean?
Oswald,
I love this.
Oswald wearing a jacket on Jefferson, if he were wearing a jacket, which he was not, does not prove he didn't kill Tippit. That's an absurd statement. Every single witness to the Tippit murder or the fleeing suspect said he was wearing a jacket.
So why do you bring up the fact that he was allegedly not wearing a jacket when Johnny Brewer sees him? What's the point?
Because Johnny Brewer was very clear in his Warren Commission testimony, which you're claiming without evidence, really, that has been doctored or faked or false. Johnny Brewer specifically said in his Warren Commission testimony that Oswald was not wearing a jacket when he saw him on Jefferson Boulevard. He was not wearing a jacket.
Okay, so as I said,
if I remember correctly, and I'm not looking up like you're doing, I'm not looking up all this testimony stuff. If I recall correctly, Johnny Brewer may have even described the shirt in some detail about whether it was tucked in or the shirt tails or something like that. I can't recall for sure right now, but I can certainly go look.
Okay.
Oswald was not wearing a jacket on Jefferson.
So in his print, so as I thought I was clear before, Johnny Brewer, if you sit down and talk with him, he'll tell you that he never read his printed Warren Commission testimony to check if everything was accurate or everything. He didn't read it until 28 years later.
This is according to Oliver Stone and his film crew, man.
Yeah, they interviewed him.
You don't know that Johnny Brewer ever said such a thing like that. You don't know that if you sit down with Johnny Brewer today, he's going to tell you that Oswald wasn't wearing a jacket. You're just talking about Oliver Stone. You know the movie JFK.
Sat down and talked with him.
You know the movie JFK wasn't true, right?
They sat down and talked with him, and he said, "No, actually, I never read my Warren Commission testimony until now. When I saw Oswald, he was." And
I call bullshit. I call bullshit on that. I call bullshit on that.
Okay, it's a free country. It's a free country.
No, but you don't have a right to say, if you sit down with Johnny Brewer, he'll tell you. You don't have a right to say that.
Yes, he will.
You're going on hearsay from Oliver Stone's film crew, whoever it was wrote that book about the movie.
Okay, so I guess.
Well, are you going on hearsay or not?
How about Chris?
Will you please answer that question real quick?
How about Chris?
You won't answer the question because you criticize others when they use hearsay, but you won't accept it when you're using hearsay.
I'm not using hearsay. I have a photo of Johnny Brewer on the set of JFK.
How the hell does that prove what he said, supposedly?
In the movie, and he was a advisor to that scene when they showed that scene in the movie of Oswald in his foyer. And what's in the movie? Oswald.
As I told you, as I made you aware, the movie has Oswald wearing a jacket.
Correct. Exactly. Yes.
Because Oliver Stone's going to do that, Matt. That's why. You know, JFK is not a true movie, right? It's not factual.
Okay,
you realize it's fiction. It's Hollywood. It's a movie.
I implore people to get this book, JFK, the book of the film, the documented screenplay. Every single sentence is footnoted, and it's not just the screenplay. There are footnotes, endnotes, articles by many other researchers, reporters, and stuff like that. It's a very interesting book. It has side stories and side notes about them filming, and this was one of them. How Johnny Brewer was a consultant on the movie. That they brought him on the set. I have a picture of him on the set, and he told them, the film crew, this is a major Hollywood film crew, that actually he said, you know what? I never read my Warren Commission testimony until now. And he read it, and he said, actually, Oswald, when I saw him, he was wearing a jacket when I saw him. And that's in the movie that he's wearing a jacket because he's right there on set telling them, how it should look.
He wasn't on set telling that. Listen. So, okay. So let's throw out his Warren Commission testimony. Throw it out. Okay. His affidavit. Okay. His affidavit on December 6th of 1963, it says, on Friday, November 22nd, 1963, I was at work at Hardy's Shoe Store, 213 West Jefferson. I had heard on the radio that the president had been shot, also that a policeman had been shot in Oak Cliff. About 1:30 p.m., I saw a man standing in the lobby of the shoe store. This man was wearing a brown sports shirt. He also acted scared, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, I agree. He was wearing a brown shirt.
He didn't say he was wearing a jacket, Matt. He said he was wearing a brown sports shirt.
So what?
So now we're going to throw out – so now Brewer's Warren Commission testimony has been doctored, and so is his affidavit
I have
Dallas
never
County.
said that his Warren Commission testimony was doctored, Bill. I've never said that. They asked him
in his Warren Commission testimony, he says the guy was not wearing a jacket.
Could I talk no, it says it was a yes or no question. It says no. But a no can simply be a mistake.
Oh, come on, stop that. That's bullshit. No, he was asked if Oswald was wearing a jacket, and he said no. And then his affidavit, he says he was wearing a brown sports shirt.
Again, he said they sat down and talked with him, and he said, I never read my warrant.
You don't know that they sat down and talked to him, and he said it.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
You don't know that that's what he said. You're not listening to me.
Okay, then we'll have to contact.
And you think a photo of him talking to someone is proof of what he said? That's absurd too. His affidavit. This man was wearing a brown sports shirt. And then he goes on to describe the way Oswald was acting. He doesn't say anything about him wearing a jacket. He wasn't wearing a jacket. Brewer says in 2 different occasions, the man, he makes no, number one, he's asked if he's wearing a jacket. He says no. The other occasion in his affidavit, he describes the man as wearing a brown sports shirt. Nothing about a jacket. You just need to face it. He wasn't wearing a jacket. You were right last year when you acknowledged he was not wearing a jacket on Jefferson. You don't know why you ditched it. That was a way better answer than this bullshit about what he supposedly told the people that wrote the book for Oliver Stone's movie JFK. It's bullshit. So you're going to criticize the Warren Commission testimony and how Brewer never saw it. What about it? I'm asking you, what about his affidavit? The man was wearing a brown sports shirt. Period.
Brown shirt. Yeah, sure. The brown shirt stood out to him more than the jacket. Simple as that.
That is ridiculous. Matt, that is ridiculous. That is absolutely. You want to talk in the beginning about making excuses.
You can yell, but that doesn't make it true, Bill. I'm telling you. Hey, listen, I've been trying to say this 5 times. Chris, call Johnny Brewer up. Have him on your show. Ask him. Do it.
About 1:30 p.m., I saw a man standing in the lobby of the shoe store. This man was wearing a brown sports shirt. He also acted as if he was scared.
So he didn't mention the jacket.
Period. Nothing about the jacket. So what? Do you want to go on to your next topic now, which is the wallet?
No. I'm not going to. No.
Okay.
So
all right.
Hold on. So again, Chris, our host, you still there? Is our host here? Hello?
Let's just keep going. Go on about.
Okay. So Chris can, or you can call him, can have Johnny Brewer on this podcast, on this show right here, and you can ask him.
Good luck with that. The guy doesn't return calls, and I don't blame him.
If I can get a word in, Jesus. So it's simple. The brown shirt made a bigger impact on him more than the jacket. But if you
bullshit.
Okay, you can swear and shout all you want, but that doesn't make it true. I'm telling you.
Bullshit.
Okay, I can tell you. You're gonna stop swearing and let me talk? Final word. He will tell you that he never read his Warren Commission testimony until 27 years later. He said,
what about his affidavit when he says the man was wearing a brown sports shirt? He doesn't mention the jacket. Sports
shirt obviously made a bigger impact on him more than the jacket.
That is nonsense, and you're making excuses.
Okay, whatever. So
go on with the wallet, because
call him up, and he'll tell you that Oswald was wearing a brown shirt. I'm sorry, was wearing a jacket.
He will tell you. He will tell you Oswald was wearing a brown shirt, because that's what he said in his affidavit in December.
You don't get to laugh at me. I made a simple mistake.
This man was wearing a brown shirt. Period.
Yes, everyone agrees he was wearing a brown shirt.
Period.
So he was also wearing a jacket.
No, he wasn't.
If that's true, that proves he didn't kill.
If he was wearing a jacket, he would have said in his affidavit. He would have said he was wearing a jacket in his affidavit.
You don't know that.
Brown sports shirt.
Okay, I've talked to so many witnesses in this case. They tell stuff that little subtle details that they never testified to, because just because it's not in testimony does not mean it didn't happen.
There's no chance that Oswald is wearing a jacket, and all Brewer does is mention a brown sports shirt in his affidavit.
Now, as I told you, okay, we're just going around in circles. I told you.
That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Obviously, the shirt made a bigger impact on him more than the jacket.
Bullshit.
Matter. Okay, what's the next topic?